poverty and oppression and not responding in a Christian way, which is why James talks about if you have faith, it should show in your works. It should show in your deeds. You know, you guys are Christians. It should show in your deeds. So here, when he's talking about the suffering, he's talking about these people who now, you know, it's kind of like the new Christian who thinks, oh, there's no more pain, there's, you know, everything's supposed to be good, and now they're in diaspora and, you know, they're not getting paid for the work they're being done, you know, they're being treated like the illegal immigrants that are being treated in America, you know. And so then there's infighting, right, because there's discomfort and everybody fighting with each other, and so that's the background of it, where it starts, and also because their understanding of the cross is a little immature. You know, they think, oh, now it's all candy and good and da da da, and yet that's not what it is. So that's the sort of underlying context of James.
So let's dig a little deeper here. Genesis 3, verses 17 to 19 state, to Adam he said, because you listened to your wife and ate the fruit from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat food from it and all the days of your life. So what kind of suffering was introduced immediately after the fall?
Hard work.
Hard work.
Hard work.
Well,
Labor.
actually, what kind of was immediately after the fall? No, I think it's shame.
Okay.
You know, they were hiding. That's I think deeper and more long lasting.
Okay. So you're talking about emotional suffering.
Yeah, psychological. You know, that the being is broken now. You know.
Okay. But yeah, but God did commit Adam to toil.
Yeah.
You will
Right,
no
right.
longer
Consequence.
right. You will no
Right.
longer
You can't
just
just
be
pick the
fed.
fruit off the
It's-
tree.
You're going to have to work for it. That's where the farming industry
Yeah.
was actually born. I can't believe I just said that. But how do you experience suffering as it relates to this topic?
Kicking and screaming. What do you mean?
Okay, all right, but that's one way. We can be outwardly demonstrative. How else do you experience suffering?
I don't like this
Sometimes
subject.
you just
That's honesty for you.
I mean, I just keep hearing that word, and it's not a nice word because through Jesus Christ we have victory. He died for all our sins. He died for all this, and we're talking about suffering. I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way tonight. I don't know why.
No,
But tell me, talk to me. I don't like the word suffering.
yeah, but
Yeah.
until it's felt, then the victory isn't really felt.
But
I
we
mean,
all
you
feel
know.
it. We all have suffered in one way or another. Like the pain of birth, you all suffered. I didn't have a child, but I'm sure you all suffered pain of birth, pain of toil of going to work every day. I
go to
mean,
work every day. It's a 20.
I don't know. I just hear that word suffering. I just want to cringe. I don't
Maybe
know. How do you feel about it?
You know, when I think about suffering to a character because I have a strong personality, and I remember like the Lord was trying to break me as far as being submissive.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, if you aren't a submissive person, you actually do suffer it.
Yeah.
So that and that was very hard. I mean, it took until I surrender and all, and that wasn't just 1 year. It was more than it was 2 or 3 years.
But how do you suffer as a submissive?
What do you mean? How do I suffer?
Yeah, what are you suffering?
It's making choices that are not of God.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's basically most of it, really. It's not submitting, what it says in His Word.
Okay.
And just doing what you think is right, and not including God in the mix of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a consequence.
Yeah.
But you feel that disease in your spirit,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you're not walking with him. So,
But you have no peace, too.
right,
And no
it's
peace.
not having the peace of God
Yeah.
when you
Sometimes making wrong
go
choices.
through that.
Okay. How many of you women have had who bear children?
How many of that children?
Yeah, how many of you bear children? Did you enjoy it?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
You,
I did. I didn't have, I was not uncomfortable.
You had no pain?
I, very little pain, maybe about 5 minutes.
How big was your epidural?
I didn't have, it wasn't, my children were small.
Okay.
So it
Me
wasn't,
too, me
it
too.
wasn't. But I think when you mentioned earlier about senses, the 5 senses, and I think that when you suffer, your whole being suffers. And it's not just a physical response to, but you suffer psychologically, physically, and so it involves your whole spirit.
Right.
So it's not just one thing, and I
Right.
suffer this way, and I react that way. It's you take the holistic approach in the total being
Right.
in terms of suffering, and I think how we respond to those physical or emotional ties or responses determines how we suffer. So so I'm not sure if we're understanding in terms of
Whether just
are you looking for a
physical-
physical response, or how do we suffer? Are the consequences of suffering? Which one are you?
Well, I
Well,
mean,
we're just asking, right?
right. Well, right. I asked, but the reason I raised that question was because a part of our suffering as humans is actually intended by God. In other words, women were not intended to bear children and have pain. That was that's what he committed Eve to. That was a consequence of her sin.
Right.
So, if it weren't for Eve and you were all here, none of you would,
Right.
everybody would have had a painless delivery like Sinead did.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, if it wasn't for
So
my
I guess
husband.
she's highly favored.
Well, I mean, the other way you can look at it is some people, if they're suffering psychologically, let's say, depression, or some event happens and causes depression, and then causes illness. I mean, so,
Has a ripple
the whole,
effect.
it's a
Right.
ripple effect, Or the physical could start first, I've been diagnosed with cancer, then you fall into depression, then you
Because it
isolate
lasts for a
yourself.
whole period
Yeah,
of
so,
time, so yeah.
right, and then you distance yourself from life group, or, instead of coming closer, you might isolate,
Yeah.
and things like that. So I think everybody is different, and therefore should be in community so that we all kind of stay
I sort of
together.
rally back.
Right. Segue back to it.
It's Susan's way of saying, we all want you in Rockland.
Now that might be suffering.
It's a-
Good suffering, though, good suffering.
Right. Well, it's really big. You can all sleep over.
Yeah. Breakfast down the house,
Well, we all go to the barn in the morning.
Right. They have good buffets.
Just to go back
They do.
to the verse, cursed is the ground. We're all suffering because we're not living in the Garden of Eden. We're not living in
Right.
perfection.
Right.
But God did not intend that suffering.
Right.
Exactly.
See, what God gave us was free will, and unfortunately, Adam made that choice. And I think if based on what Jeff says, and we look at the history of from the beginning of time, a lot of the suffering we go through is because the choices we make, because of our free will.
Right.
So we'll all suffer, different and based on a lot of what we do. But from the verse, everything has been cursed from the beginning. So I'm not living on easy street.
You're not?
No,
What is the name of
nobody
that
is.
street you're on?
Nobody's on easy street, right?
We had to give birth and we had to work.
You're right.
We got double, right?
But again, we got to go back to the still the foundations of the word. I mean, because what did Jesus Christ come here for? He suffered and he's
Yes.
bearing our suffering, right? And
From the
and
curse of the law.
our greatest reflection of Christ and Christ-like is the expectation of recognizing that we have to suffer. me, where I'm at in my Christ-led life of maturity, understanding what God has willed me to do and my purpose and the aspiration of me desiring to do just that there, I take all of what is in the middle of that there because I know it's from A to Z.
Right.
You know, and that goes back to my point of reference of these stories that we know. We know the story of Job. We know the story of many applicable stories. We know the end results. And of course, if we know that we didn't want to, if we could pick and choose out those various sufferings of any of them, we would do it because who want to inflict pain, right? But it's a part of our life. If we're going to mirror Christ-like in what we do, we have to expect that there. Now, we hope that we can grow our maturity to have a greater comfort in understanding that biblically. But it's just where all of us are individually to have that experience of knowing it. And that's why we can have a different answer all around the room. And I just love these questions. I just love it because it's sharpening me too, even with what I know. Not saying that I know more than anyone else. But it just gives even me in some confirmations in some areas. And I pray, of course, that you all receive me because I'm definitely blessed to receive you all as well. All right.
And what Jess said kind of mirrors what Vic said. We all operate with free will.
Yeah, exactly.
God gave us that gift of free will.
Exactly.
And
that's a choice.
Right.
We have
So we
choices.
make choices. We live with those choices.
4 degrees in here, I'm sorry.
What's that?
I'm sorry, no.
We make choices and we live with those choices. And each of us suffers in our own way. Some of us more deeply than others. Some of us suffer with more faith, knowing that our suffering. Marilyn, I know you're really having trouble with this. But
I'm gonna jump on the Maryland bandwagon because I'm with her. That I don't like the word suffering, and you know what? And Jeff, to your point, I would have to say this. I think we go through trials, but I don't think we have to suffer at all because I think Christ suffered for us so I could have the victory over suffering. Yeah. So I could go through a trial, but I'm not suffering.
And I'd like to say
I'm not
this to
suffering.
Marilyn.
That's why
Well, I'm sorry, but I
Jeff
suffer.
mentioned Job. Chapter 42, he gets double for his trouble. I have to give him a good word.
Wait, one at a time, one at a time.
I already
Sorry.
got double for my trouble.
There you go. There you go.
I did. I already have got
I told her, I said, the book of Job.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
You know, you go to the
Right.
book of Job, but let's go to chapter 42, because at the end,
Yeah.
he did get double for his trouble. She wants a good word here tonight. She doesn't want to hear about suffering.
No, I just don't like. I don't like.
You don't like the word
No.
suffering.
Well,
I don't know. To me, it's like, in Christ we have victory. He suffered for
That's
us.
right.
He took all these things. I want to look at the side of what Christ did for me in victory. I don't want to look at the suffering. Like, I feel like we are going to all have trials. That's life. Everybody has a trial. Every day we have trials. But if we're going to count it all joy, why aren't we talking about the joy of it instead of the suffering? I don't know. It just makes me
But
very
I
uncomfortable. I feel very uncomfortable inside.
I
Very.
think that's part of
And
our
I just
preparation.
don't feel right. I don't feel good.
because it's not about denying the suffering. It's
It's the
going
word.
through it.
No, it's the word, suffering.
Oh.
Like he said, it's a trial, yes, we have tribulations, but God delivers us from them all. And that's how we could get joy, because he delivers us from all that suffering. And what he said is true. There's a cloud of witnesses. And the only reason we look at those people in the Bible is because they had faith through everything, even though they didn't see the end, or some of them even didn't see what was promised.
Right.
They still had faith in everything they did. So to me, that's how I want to look at it. I want to look at those cloud of witnesses that had faith, no matter what God did to them or what they went through, they still believed. So to me, I don't think suffering has to be a part of your life. I really don't. I don't.
The meaning of suffering,
What
it
is
says
it?
the state of
And I'm reading the
undergoing,
same
the state of undergoing pain, the stress of hardship, you know.
And it says
So-
it may be an experience of
Yeah.
unpleasantness or an aversion associated with the perception of harm or threat. Suffering is the basic element that makes up the negative valence of affective phenomena. Suffering is often characterized as physical or mental. So, I mean, to a degree, we all suffer with something, but it says it may come in all degrees of intensity from mild to intolerable.
Right.
Well,
in-
and
in
let's say
endurations.
my life is completely without suffering. But, I mean, there's enough suffering in the world that I could suffer together with.
That's right.
Oh, of course,
I mean, if you're
yeah.
praying for North Korea or, you
Well, I
know,
don't
I
think
mean,
that she's
No,
in denial
I'm
of
not in
that
denial.
suffering.
I've suffered a lot, okay?
She's not in
I
denial.
have,
I had my share.
no, I have more than my share.
Right
of
up, and,
suffering.
right up through this
But I
afternoon.
feel like I want to have joy in it.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you,
Well,
God
that's what
did
he
give me
told us
double
to
for
have
my
joy.
troubles. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But I don't want to look at it as, oh, it's the sin of the world and it's the sin of this. No, I have trials. I had more illnesses than probably everyone here, okay? And I keep going through it. But I believe that God could deliver us from them all.
That's right.
And that's what I feel like I should concentrate. Not the suffering part, but that Jesus took my suffering. I'm still alive. I got 2 houses now. I never owned a house. I got double.
That's right.
Okay? God does do those things, and I believe He does those
Without
things.
a
And I
husband.
believe in those witnesses that have a lot of faith, even through every trial that I've been through, and everyone here. I know a lot of you have been through a lot of stuff. And if it wasn't for your faith, how would you get through it?
Right.
How?
Right.
And believing what He said in the end result. And we
Yeah,
know
the
the
end
end
result.
result's going to be good.
Yeah.
Amen.
Everything works towards our good.
Working together for our
Right.
good.
So maybe that's why I just have the
No,
the word suffering got to me.
No, listen,
Yeah.
I completely understand where you're coming
Yeah.
from because it feels negative to continually, I mean, almost like we're harping on it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
But I think the idea of this lesson and I'm glad you weren't here 2 weeks ago. But the idea is to simply acknowledge it and understand all components of our experiences, especially the earthly part of it, because at the end of the day, or at the end of our natural lives, it's over. Do you know what I mean? It is over. I mean, if we maintain our faith, if we never let our faith waver, even if there's physical suffering, we know that there's joy at the end. Okay? We're not denying that. We're not saying it doesn't exist. But I think what Christ Church is trying to get us to do is to simply acknowledge it and to use it as a means of strengthening our faith. Because we find ways to get through it. We get through it with our faith. We get through it in prayer. We get through it with our commonality and our association and working and talking about it together. You know, I've never been in a life group before. And I know that the experience for me as a participant was enriching. This is the first time Susan invited me. I'm like, I don't know about that, you know. And I went, and you know, she said, "Well, you want to come back again?" I went, maybe, you know. And I kept coming back. Now, part of it was because we were dating. But the thing was,
Good part.
but the thing is that there were experiences being shared in this environment that I had not been as consistently exposed to, and it enriched me. And it wasn't all pleasant. I mean, I remember there was a little testimony on my part one day where I choked up in a life group meeting, and that's not something